how do we respond to the challenges we find ourselves in as a generation? The first thing I definitely want to sort of give as a prelude to this is to stop looking for simple answers. I think we spend a lot of time discussing should these videos be simplified, and eventually we reached a conclusion of saying no, let's not make it any easier than required. There are no simple answers. We've been addicted to like quick, give it to me in 240 characters or give it to me in like 3 lines, but there are no 3 lines answers for these deep questions. There are 3 things that come to me in terms of what we could do to reclaim our place as a generation, to move out of this challenge, and I framed them cleverly as 3H. The first H is human contact. I feel we as a generation have lost our capacity to deeply connect to people. We've lost the art of courtship and flirting, the art of having confrontations, the art of having genuine heart-to-heart conversations as well. So it's very easy to talk on surface. It's much harder to drop deeper. We just simply don't have the skills and the spaces to do that. And we've not even learned. Technology here comes in to make things worse, because then I can just swipe a Tinder profile or just have a WhatsApp chat, and it's just so much more convenient to give an emoticon instead of a real emotion. And today we've replaced this whole array of a rich human experience just by a limited text, because it's safe, because it's so easy. Now though, the invitation is for us to move out of that convenience and build real human-to-human contact. Just as we've been pulled into the online world, it's time to get pushed back into the offline world, the messy world of relationships, of expectations, of heartbreaks, of challenges, and really learn from there. The satyagraha we can all do is to start unplugging actively from social media for a certain amount of time, maybe an hour a day, and use that time actively for connecting people to people. So I think the first answer definitely seems to be human contact. It's very satisfying. It's the space where real answers can be found, and just the skills of connecting human to human can be learned. The second H I have is the H of humility. We live in a culture which really feeds our ego and makes us feel like we are the center of the world and so on, and it sells us a certain lifestyle. Today our primary identity is as consumers. It's just so easy to walk into a mall and spend money, feel like the king of the world because everybody is paying attention to you, and so it's just so easy to be consumers. It's that identity that's been sold to us, and that further bloats our own idea of who we are and how cool we are and so on. So the invitation is humility, the humility to acknowledge that we are imperfect, we are very limited. We just cannot go on this consumption binge. We're going to run out of money, we're going to run out of resources on the planet. And just to connect to the fact that we come from a culture where simplicity is valued. Like Gandhi said, there is enough for everybody's needs but not for greeds. For some reason we've gotten fixated on fulfilling our greeds. So how about coming back to looking at what our real needs are? What does a simple life look like? What does a simple frugal life? And here we talk about voluntary simplicity, so not an imposed simplicity of everybody should, but really asking for each of us, saying what are my needs? What is the level at which I'm willing to live at? And what really matters? Does the next mobile phone model matter, or does a heart-to-heart conversation with somebody really matter? If we're able to get these priorities right, because right now they seem to be very muddled up by the messaging that's coming to us, then I think humbly we'll be able to craft out a very different path. A path where what really matters is not the stuff you have, but the spirit, the spiritual journey, your own discovery, these kind of intangibles that we've always valued as a culture. So I would say second one is around just the humility of living simply, of living out a self-discovery spiritual journey rather than going into stuff. The third H for me is hard work, and I do not at all mean to imply that we don't work hard. I think we work very hard. But there's a certain rite of passage I feel, and it's very hard to articulate, but in my own life experiences, when at an investment banking firm I had to go and get breakfast and coffee for the whole desk, or when I had to do some cold calling after my MBA, it was really hard. But what it did for me was to bring a certain kind of dignity, a certain kind of appreciation of the fact that the world is not an easy place, people shut doors on our face, and that there's a value to sticking through things, to suffering. There's a value to suffering, and I feel as a generation we're kind of designed to avoid suffering, to minimize what is uncomfortable, and particularly not go into situations which hammer us into shape. It's almost like, oh, I should have something that really speaks to my heart and that should be successful and so on. I think embracing hard work in a very in a very specific way, almost like from the previous generation, learning from the previous generation, the kind of hard work where we have to take orders, where we have to do things which are difficult, which are probably not as awesome, they don't make great posts, but they bring us down to the ground. I think we need to get grounded. So the hard work of coming back to the ground, the hard work of going through the discipline of doing something again and again for a while, even if it gets boring, even if it doesn't meet the purpose of our life or creates an impact, but just having that patience to go through it. I think being ground down that way will also get us ready and robust and willing to go on. So I feel a combination of these three, the human contact where we can have these conversations, connect, learn to relate, combined with a life of voluntary simplicity where we need lesser stuff, so we have more time to talk to people, connect and find what we find joy in, and a valuing of struggle, a valuing of difficulty of a certain type, not the difficulty of following your heart alone, but the difficulty of doing something mundane, boring, repetitive, as a way of shaping our character. I think these seem to be possible steps out, and continuing this dialogue. So the intent of the series of videos that we're recording is to start this conversation, and this one is particularly about what we as a generation can do as actions. So what do you feel, what you as a generation, as millennials, what do you think we can do to start moving out of this mess? I'd love to hear, and please let us know.